This is a free download of the FM104 Phone Show, Ireland's #1 late-night radio show with Adrian Kennedy.
Now you're welcome back. This is Adrian Kennedy with FM104's Phone Show. We're with you right through until 1 o'clock tonight. Our telephone number is 6797 FM104. Now, according to the Irish Red Cross, this is what they have to say. We're reading this on their website today. There is no law in Ireland which states at what age it is legal for a young person to babysit. Parents must decide whether someone is old enough to babysit. The Irish Red Cross, as a responsible organisation, would like to emphasise the importance of parents exercising care and discretion when choosing a babysitter. And here's a question for you. We want to know, should we bring in a law on babysitting? Should we make it obligatory that, I don't know, that somebody under the age of 16 can't babysit? Or should it be under the age of 15 or 14? Or where do you draw the line? Do you have somebody young minding your kids when you go out of the weekend? Do you have a young babysitter? If so, what age do you allow somebody to mind your child? And is it irresponsible of a parent to allow, I don't know, I'll give you, let's say a 13-year-old to babysit? Is that too young? Let me go to Gemma. You're on FM104. Gemma, how are you?
Fine. I think there should be a law against babysitting.
And what age should the law apply to? Where do you draw the line?
I think they should be about 17, 18 for a person to babysit at home. 17
or 18?
Yeah, because that's more like he said, the teenagers and that off the street, and it's just better, because I used to babysit when I was 14, 15, 3 kids at a time, and it was just very difficult.
And do you, looking back on it, do you think you were too young?
Yeah, I thought I was too young to babysit. I couldn't handle it. I got stressed and all, and it was just very difficult.
So you would like to see a law which would make it 17 or 18 for somebody to babysit?
Yeah.
Because at 14 you don't think you were capable or fit. As you look back on it, you don't think you were the right age for babysitting?
No, because at this time, some people, the parents or adults or cousins or whatever, they ask you to babysit, and they leave you with 3 or 4 kids, and they don't pay you enough either for a 14-year-old.
And why? What were you getting paid? What age are you now?
I'm 17.
You're 17 now.
Yeah.
Do you think you're the right age now for babysitting?
Yeah, I can handle it now because I have experience, but if I think there should be a course as well. Some people don't know how to handle it, and they just the kids do wreck their heads as well. So
I think a lot of people would actually agree with you on that there should be a course for babysitting.
They should show you how to properly do it, and say if there was a baby 8 months and they're still wearing nappies, they should show you how to change the nappies properly and all.
Where when you got lumped, how old were the kids you were minding?
About 8, that age, 8 months, a year, 2 years. And
you were only 14 at the time?
Yeah.
Did you ever have any emergencies? Did you ever have any crisis?
Yes, there was one time where I was babysitting. The person I was babysitting for said my friends would come up, and there was something wrong with the bankley door, and I opened it and it closed and the handle came off, and the baby was locked inside the door, and I was panicking.
Oh, and you were locked outside?
I had to ring her and tell her to come home.
Oh my God.
And she had to let me in and all.
Oh my God. That must have been well scary.
Oh, it was terrifying, it was.
Oh, yeah, I'd imagine it was. And how did you manage to get in?
I had my phone with me, and it was on a very low battery, but the curtain was still a bit open, and I was banging on the door so the baby would keep coming over to me, and I rang my mother, and my mother told me she'd get the person I was babysitting for, and I rang that person, and she came back. My mum picked her up, and she came back. And
so how long were you outside?
I was outside for about half an hour.
Oh my God! And was everything all right? I assume everything was all right.
The baby just kept coming over to me, but when I couldn't see it, that's when I was panicking and all.
So you think that it is too young to be babysitting at the age that you were babysitting at?
Yeah, it's very young. Some people, I know my friend, she's actually babysitting right now. Well, not my friend, my friend's little sister, and she's 14, and she's 13, 14, and she's babysitting kids that she can't handle at the moment. I think it's just ridiculous. I think you should be older to have to babysit. I think there should be a law.
Okay, so the law you would bring in, if you could bring in a law, would be what? 18?
17, 18.
17 or 18. All right, stay there for a second. Do you agree with that? Or maybe you think, maybe you have a babysitter of 14 or even younger who minds your kids, and you think that person is perfectly okay to do the job. Let me go to line 2, and that's Pamela. You're on FM104. Pamela, how are you?
Hey, Adrian. Yeah, I definitely think there should be a law.
You definitely think there should be a law?
I definitely think, because when I was younger, I'm 26 now, Adrian. When I was younger, I used to mind my younger siblings, and it was very, very, very hard. And that I had to be responsible for feeding them, cleaning them, whatever. But if things weren't done with my mother was very strict now, and if things weren't done the right way, she'd be very, very upset. Like.
So what age? What was the youngest age you babysat at?
Or under 1.
No. What age were you?
I was 8 years of age.
You were 8?
8 years of age, yeah.
And you were minding a 1-year-old?
A 1-year-old, yeah, under 1.
And where would they be?
They'd be in my mother's house.
No, but where would they be when you were babysitting?
They'd be in the house with me, like. I'd be minding, now there was 6 kids younger than me, and I'd be minding each and every one of them.
And they'd be out?
No, they'd be in the house. Yeah, obviously they go around playing, or, you know. But
No, I'm talking about the parents.
Oh, yeah, they'd be out, yeah.
They'd be out where, in the pub?
My mother'd be out walking. My father, now, he'd be off whatever he was doing.
And you'd be left caring for the kids?
I would, yeah.
And
so I really do think there should be a law, 17 or 18. I really think it should be over 18, though.
So at 8 years of age, you were minding your younger brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
Ranging in age from?
The youngest was not even 1.
Not even 1?
Yeah, up to 12 years of age.
My God.
I really do think...
So how long did that go on for, Pamela?
Till I was 16.
So while your mother and father were out, you were the mammy of the house?
Yeah. I used to be the mammy, yeah.
And nobody ever... Did you ever have any problems? Did you have any crisis?
I didn't know, thank God.
Thank God is right.
There was a few cuts and bruises, but I was able to deal with it because I was always the middle one in the family, so I was able to take care of that.
And who was older than you?
Just one brother. But he was always in his little friends, you know.
Right, so he wasn't a suitable candidate. You were the one chosen for the babysitting.
Yeah.
So you would like to see a law being brought in that would make that illegal, make it illegal for kids of your age to babysit?
Yeah, I would, yeah. Because, Adrian, it's like people out there and they're getting 12, 13-year-olds then, and the way kids are these days, like they're into experimenting, and so, say if, God forbid, like a child was there and they were off experimenting in a different room, like, so, and the kids left there in the sitting room playing, and sure, if, God forbid, if that child went off to the cook or whatever, sure, who was responsible for that? Only the babysitters.
And God only knows how you'd have coped with something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And
so, if something did go wrong, how far away would your mum be?
Oh, she could be miles away.
And would you have a...
But I always had the neighbour to rely on, like, if something did happen, But
of course...
If the neighbour was out, like, what was I supposed to do?
That's what I was going to say. That's assuming the neighbour is in.
Yeah. But thank God, no, it was only minor problems now I had with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would like to see a law that would make it illegal for your mother to do what she did. Now, I've a number of people. I got a text a moment ago saying, my niece, who's only 9, babysits my 2-year-old and 4-month-old baby. She's great.
Oh, no, I don't agree with that. Especially with the way the kids are today, Adrian. Like, they're very bold nowadays. So I really do think there should be a law brought in.
Well, stay there for a second. Gwen, you did a course in babysitting when you were 14.
Hi, Adrian. Yeah, I did indeed. I'm 24 now, so it's 10 years ago, a good while ago.
Mm.
But I went and did it as, it was an after-school thing, like an evening class. And
where did you do it? Because I know people are going to get onto us and say, where did that course take place?
I did it in Hearthtown Community School, but as I said, it's a good 10 years ago. I don't know if it's still running.
But at the time, it was a course on babysitting, basically.
Yeah, it was a babysitting course. So myself and about 3 or 4 other girls that I knew locally who were the same age, we signed up to do it, and we learned first aid on adults and on children, because the first aid for children is different.
Mm-hmm.
We learned how to change a nappy. We learned how to make formula up. We learned about the water temperature for a bath, everything you need to know. The things that you'd learn in a maternity hospital if you're going to have a baby, basically.
Wow. And did that help you then when it came to babysitting at 14?
Definitely, yeah. I babysat 3 children. Normally, each family I babysat had 3 children, and I had 4 or 5 families that I used to babysit for every single week, and I never had any issues, and wasn't stressed about minding them at all.
So, listening to somebody like Pamela, though, at 8 years of age, because we have no law, there's nobody to say whether you're doing right or wrong in terms of babysitting. Listening to Pamela, she was left alone at 8. Surely that's too young, even if you go on a bloody course.
That's definitely too young. Sure, you're not physically able to manage the children. You're probably not much bigger than the other children yourself. So, and an 8-year-old doesn't have the cop on. It's different when you're a teenager. And even at 14, not every 14-year-old would be old enough or mature enough to mind children. It depends on the person, I think.
But how do you make that decision? Isn't that part of the problem here? That if we're to introduce a law, it has to be a black and white law, doesn't it?
I think if they were introduced a law, 16 would be a fair age.
16 would be a fair age.
Yeah. I don't think any younger, unless they're very mature, if they're a family friend and it's only for a couple of hours, yes. But not, like some parents go out at 8 o'clock and don't come home till 3 and 4 in the morning. That's a long time to leave a young person responsible for your children.
Yeah, it is an awfully long time. And I have a lot of people been on to us saying things like, I was babysitting at 12 and 11 and all of that. You think that that's just way too young?
Definitely.
So you would put it at 16?
16, definitely, yeah.
Stay there for a moment. 6797104 is our number. Now, Naomi.
Yeah, I'm here.
Naomi, you're 14.
Yeah, I'm 14.
And you've been babysitting for 2 years since you were 12.
Yeah, since I was 12. I babysit my 2 little sisters.
You babysit your 2 little sisters?
Yeah, my best friend Eva.
And how old are your 2 little sisters?
Well, when I started, they were 1 and the other one was 7.
1 and 7. So,
yeah.
So the 1-year-old was still in nappies and...
Yeah, but like I knew because I've lived with her and like I've done it before.
So it was no bother to you for changing nappies or anything like that?
No, well, I didn't like it, but my ma showed me, but I didn't like it, but had to do it, you know.
But you had to do it. Now, a lot of people would say, particularly for a child of that age, that you are just too young to be minding the child.
Well, I don't think I was thinking because I'm very responsible. Like, for my age, I think I'm very responsible and, like, I'd know what to do if anything had happened.
And did anything ever... has anything ever happened? God forbid.
Not so far, no.
Not so far?
No.
But the worry is that something could happen. Where would your mum be if something did go wrong?
She'd only be down with her friends down the road.
So
like,
she'd only be a couple of minutes away?
Yeah, she's only about 5 minutes away.
She's only 5 minutes away?
Yeah, I wouldn't be alone. Like, I'd have a few friends around, like Aoife or Gemma or Sarah, something like that. And Gemma...
Sorry, say that again?
I'd have a few friends around, like Sky or Aoife or Gemma or Carla.
Now, Pamela, are you still there?
I am, yeah.
Now, she's 14 now, has been babysitting for the last 2 years. Do you think she's too young?
I do, yeah. That's very irresponsible now for the parents to leave her minding our siblings. I think it's very irresponsible now of the parents.
You obviously don't think your parents are being irresponsible, Naomi, no?
No. Well, I think I'm very responsible for my age. Like, I've coped with them because, like, my mother...
Well, what's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that you've had to cope with?
Well, one of my little sisters was sick. Like, she got sick, but like I contacted my mum, and she just came down straight away. So there's no problem.
There was no problem at all.
No, there shouldn't be any law because like anyone could babysit for anyone.
Well, do you think a 12-year-old could babysit? Well, you obviously do. You were doing it at 12. Do you think?
Yeah, I didn't mind. Like, I had to do what I had to do, didn't I?
No, but I'm not saying whether you minded or not, but At 12? Okay, you're 14 now, you're all grown up now, but at 12, I think of my own daughter who's 12, yeah? And I wouldn't leave her babysitting, not in a million years. Not because she's not grown up, because she is, but I still wouldn't leave her babysitting a young 1-year-old child.
Well, like, why? There's no problem with it. It's okay. Like, if there was anything to happen, she'd contact you, wouldn't she?
Well, Pamela, if something goes wrong, they just contact you.
That's only a child rearing a child. I don't agree with that at all. Say, God forbid, if that child went into the fits or, held its breath for how long or whatever, how's that child supposed to cope with something like that? Especially if the mother, it only takes a few minutes for that child to go blue or whatever, Adrian, as you know that yourself.
So you think that the parents here are being absolutely irresponsible?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Very irresponsible.
So Naomi, 14 years of age, has been babysitting since she was 12, and at the time your little sister was 1, was she, Naomi?
Yeah, she was 1.
So
when I was 12, I've only babysitted ever once or twice until I got to a teenage age, and I started babysitting more regularly, like Saturdays now.
You started babysitting more regularly?
Yeah, like I only babysitted once or twice at the age of 12 because like my mum wouldn't have trusted me because I wasn't even a teenager yet. But when I became a teenager, like I babysitted more regularly, like for our friends. You know.
Sorry, Pamela, a lot of people saying that we should have a law, but not at 18, at maybe 14 or 15. Is that still too young?
No, it's still too young. That's way too young. Even the majority of kids there, as you know, in Dublin yourself, Adrian, a lot of them are going out drinking, hanging around the streets. And if you bring a very immature child into mind your kids, at the end of the day, what's going to happen to them kids? I think it's very immature now if the parents let their kids do that. It's just like a 12-year-old minding a 1-year-old is very, very immature. I think at the end of the day, that's only a child rearing a child. I think that's my point of view now. I think that's
Naomi, you don't think you're a child rearing a child?
No, I think I'm a teenager. I'm a full teenager. Like, I'm very mature. Like, if anything was happening, I'd be like, it's not like I'd cry or like take a panic attack or that. Like,
but fortunately, nothing has happened, so you don't really know, do you?
Well, not at the moment, no. And hopefully not, because I probably wouldn't know what to do. But I'd contact their parents or my parents.
All right, stay there for a moment. Let me go to Kathy. You're on FM104, Kathy. How are you?
Hi, Adrian. Thanks for taking the call.
No problem at all, Kathy. Now, you can hear what Pamela is saying quite clearly. There should be a law that nobody under the age of 18 should be allowed to babysit children.
Well, when you think of Adrian, 17 and 18-year-olds nowadays don't want to be babysitting. They want to be out with their friends. A lot of them go to the pubs. So they're not going to be wanting to be sitting at home sitting with children.
Is that... Yeah, no, I agree with you. But surely that's just tough on the parents then if they can't get a babysitter.
Well, that's right. It's tough on the parents. But nowadays I find the children are more mature than what they were years ago. I mean...
So what age would you draw the line? Where do you think is an appropriate age for babysitting?
13.
13?
13. I mean, Naomi there. Is that the child's name, Naomi?
Naomi, yeah. I
think she sounds very mature on the phone. She's 14 now, isn't she?
She does come across quite mature, I'll give her that much, yeah.
Very mature she comes across. And I have to say, I would have her babysitting because to me I think she's very responsible the way she's speaking. And fair play for a 14-year-old to be able to speak like that.
Well, now there you are. There's a compliment for Naomi.
Thank you.
You're welcome, love.
Now, well, there you go. So what age, Kathy, are you saying?
I'd say 13, because where I live, there's a lot of 13-year-olds that are very mature. And when you think of it, it's 13-year-olds that cause an awful lot of problems around the area. So therefore, babysitting is like a goal for them, to set a goal for themselves, to keep off the street, babysitting, earn a few pounds.
Do you think, Pamela, she's insane to be saying 13-year-olds are mature enough to mind kids?
I do, yeah, because at the end of the day, Naomi sounds very mature on the phone. But God forbid, if that child went into the fits and stopped breathing, or how's that child supposed to cope? Has she been given advice on how to cope if a child went like that? Or, do you know, there's no way a mother could sit her child down and say, look, if that happens, or do this and do that. Like, do you know, like I'm nearly 26 myself, and I don't think I cope with that.
Well, nowadays in schools they're doing first aid.
Not in most schools, though.
Most schools are doing first aid. Going back years ago, you didn't.
Yeah.
And as you said, you were 8 years of age, raising a young family for your mother.
Yeah.
Your mother must have been insane to leave you at 8 years of age. Nowadays, any mother that leaves a child at 8 years of age is insane.
So, Kathy, have you got kids that need babysitting?
I have a 10-year-old, and I wouldn't leave her on her own.
You wouldn't leave her on her own, no?
I have a 17-year-old and I have a 16-year-old, and like that, they're there for her if I need them to babysit.
Okay, so at what age would you allow your 10-year-old to go babysitting?
13 with a neighbour, but if it was far out, I'd cut a line there. But as long as I knew the neighbour who she was babysitting for. But most people nowadays that go out have their children in bed, so there's no minding on the children.
Until one of them wakes up vomiting or...
one of them wakes up, yeah.
I mean, Pamela, when she puts it like that, I remember babysitting as a young fella as well. I mean, bored out of me tree because the kids were asleep and there was
I'm saying, like, you know, the way, like, if young girls out there want to babysit, obviously they're going to call friends around, and the friends are going to get messy. So if they turn on the cook or say to light a fag, most teenagers are smoking these days. They turn on the gas to light a fag, but say they're messing there and say the whole thing goes up. How are they supposed to cope with that?
Well, that's where you draw the line. You don't let friends in when they're babysitting.
Well, kids will be kids at the end of the day. You're going to tell them one thing, they do another.
Exactly, but if you think they're mature enough, you have to give them that little bit of trust. If there's no trust there, you have to have that trust there to trust the children to sit with your children.
Yeah, but some parents out there, as you know yourself, they don't give two flying hoots. They'll just say, oh, babysit away. Once they get their night out, they're all right. Like, and some parents, as you know yourself, you're probably a good mother yourself, but some parents out there, they couldn't give a damn.
I agree with you there. There is a lot of parents that don't give a damn, but you can't tarnish everyone with the same brush, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying there, but some parents know, they're, at the end of the day, it takes two to make a baby, so why bring in another third party to look after them kids?
But when you're a parent, you need to have your time out from your children also.
Yeah, once you have a responsible person minding your kids.
Exactly, but there's a lot of 13-year-olds nowadays that are very responsible. I mean, my two...
Okay, so hang on again. 13 is the age you think is the right age for babysitting?
With most children, yeah. Not all children, most children.
Now, Pamela, when you think of... you were saying that you used to be left looking after kids. At 13, do you think you were grown up enough?
No.
No?
No, I wasn't. At 13 years of age, I just wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to go off playing, and especially then when my mother made me babysit, then, you know, I used to take it out on the children as well. I used to smack the children even though they weren't being bowls, and just by spite because my mother had left me with them.
Did you get on with your mother?
I did, yeah, but my mother was very strict.
Well, then that's where the downfall was.
Yeah, but there is a lot of kids out there, if they're not allowed to go out playing and the mother puts down the leg saying you're babysitting whether you like it or not, you know, the kids are not going to like that.
Were you the oldest in your family?
I'm the second oldest.
And is there a girl older than you or a boy?
A boy.
Yeah, see, a lot of people won't need boys babysitting, so therefore...
See, he got away with murder as well, though.
Yeah.
See, my mother was always strict on me because I was the oldest girl.
Do you have children now yourself?
Sorry?
Do you have children now yourself?
No, I don't know.
No. Is it because of past experience that you had that you were made babysit, that you're so against young children babysitting now?
It's not, no, it's because I've seen parents out there letting their young kids babysit, and I'd often say to them, look, I'll mind your kids for you, because I just don't agree with young kids being left babysitting.
But see, a lot of young children nowadays love to babysit because they're getting a few pounds for themselves. They can go to pictures and things like that. You know, they're earning their own money.
Yeah, and that makes them feel independent as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So I don't really think... Confidence. Yeah.
Okay, so if it came to a law being brought in, Kathy, you're saying a law just wouldn't make sense?
I don't think a law would make sense because I don't think anyone would go by it. But still, I mean, if they have a babysitter at 13 or 14 and a law comes in that is 16, 17, they're not going to dump their babysitter to go get another babysitter when the children are used to that babysitter.
All right, stay there for a second. She thinks 13-year-olds are well capable of babysitting. Is she insane? Or is she right? 6797 FM104 is our telephone number. Anne, you're on Anne, you're on FM104. How are you, Anne?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I really think that leaving a 13-year-old babysitting, you might as well leave your children at home on their own. Really, it's only a child minding a child. I really agree with the previous caller there.
There you go, Kathy. You may as well be leaving the kids home on their own.
Like, what if one of those kids...
Fair play, but that's your opinion. Everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah, I have 4 children. My eldest is almost 14, and my youngest is 2. And there's no way he's 13 now. And he is a boy, yeah, fair enough. I know what you're saying about girls. But if he's a boy or a girl, he wouldn't know what to do if a 2-year-old, choked on something, woke up night. If someone came to the door to rob the house, or, he's only a child. He wouldn't be mature enough. He'd die. And really, getting out, having a drink. My children come first. So unless I've got someone, a mature, responsible adult looking after my children, I say it.
Well, that's why you don't go out and you check out your own.
No, and what is the right age then?
On their own. I would think, say, when he's 16.
You'd say 16?
Yeah.
16, not 13?
No way. No, certainly not.
You don't think 13-year-olds are grown up enough nowadays, as Kathy said?
Oh, look, not a chance. Not a chance. They guess they're texting on the phone. I know they want to do that at 15 and 16, but, not that there's anything wrong with texting. But, they have their friends over, they'd run amok.
They're just not, their mind wouldn't be on the job, basically. They're not grown up enough.
No, they're not. No.
And
they could put on the toast.
Okay, so you'd like to see a law of 16 to make it illegal for anyone under the age of 16 to be left caring for children.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's
Where
it gets me when I see people in the pubs out and about, and they're leaving their kids at home on their own. But I know they've got a 12 or 13-year-old at home. I think the kids are fine, but it's all very well until something goes wrong.
Where, Kathy, you think that a lot of children of 13 are well mature enough?
Very mature. I mean, if you pick out 10 houses in an area, you'd be guaranteed to be about 9 of them houses with 13 to 14-year-olds babysitting. There'd be very few 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
You would never leave leave a 13-year-old minding children?
No. I think it's unfair on that 13-year-old to expect them to be mature enough and responsible enough.
Well, if you put 50 13-year-olds into a room and ask them that question, I'd be guaranteed you'd be left with less than 5 there saying that they wouldn't do it.
Sorry, say that again?
I said, if you put 50 children into a room and put that question to them, would you babysit? You'd be guaranteed you'd have less than 5 people telling you that they wouldn't do it. Any 14-year-old would jump at the chance of babysit knowing that they're going to get a few pounds at the end of the night.
Yeah, of course they would. Of course they would.
I'm saying all that, you check out the child. I'm not saying pick any 13-year-old, bum your baby.
I know.
You suss out the child before you leave the child. You bring the child to your home, you watch them with your children.
Oh yeah, and see how they get on in the night.
You build it up there.
Yeah. But like I said, if the house, if someone came knocking on the door, pushed away past that child, I'm whatever. I live down the road. I just want to, they could just, really. Like how much does a babysitter cost?
Well, I don't know because I've never had a babysitter myself.
Yeah, I know you said your children were older, but I know personally we would not go out unless we had a babysitter, and I know it's definitely hard to get them at the weekends because they're 16, 17 are heading out themselves.
Exactly.
So you know what? If you're fortunate enough to have your mum or a sister or someone living
close by, it'd be handy.
Close by, like say this Friday night I'll babysit for you. Next Friday night you babysit. And then I'm out, and I'm knowing that if one of the kids waking up during the night, that you're there, you're an adult, you're a mother.
Yeah.
If something happens to one of the kids, they're sick.
I agree.
I'm gone through 4 hours, and I know, it is a lot. The time you add your babysitter, your taxi, your couple of jobs, you wouldn't see 150 on a couple of hours, and you've only just gone to the pub for a couple of hours. But at the end of the day...
Okay, stay there for a second, because Suzy, you wanted to talk to Kathy as well, did you?
Yeah, hi Adrian.
Hi Suzy, how are you?
I just can't honestly understand that woman, Kathy. I can't make her out at all, that she would honestly come on the phone, and if she's trying to tell the truth or just bluff that she likes her night out, that she would leave a 13-year-old with children. I have never heard such utter rubbish in my life.
I never said I went out and left a 13-year-old.
You're saying that you see nothing wrong with going out and leaving 13-year-olds babysitting.
Well, will you listen to what I said earlier on?
I'm listening to you.
I said you suss out the child. You bring the child into your home and you watch that child with your children to make sure that they're responsible.
You can't suss out a 13-year-old and bring them into the home and see how they'll be with your child. They're only children themselves at 13. I've never heard anything like it. How would your mind be at rest to go out and know you've sussed out a 13-year-old and you think they're going to be okay? You go on out, have a meal, a few drinks, whatever, and you think that child is going to be all right. You don't for 1 minute tell me that it's not going to cross your mind that he's going to bring in his mate and that his mate might bring in another mate.
But you wouldn't leave boys babysitting.
They might have a smoke or two. They might light up a little joint. You don't know what's going to go on.
But not all 13-year-olds are like that.
Sorry?
Not all 13-year-olds are like that.
Not all 13-year-olds are like that. But how do you know the one you've picked isn't? You've no guarantee. No, listen to me. I've listened to you now, and you're a long time going on. You have no guarantee that the one you've picked or his friend that he brings in hasn't got a little bit of hash on them, and they get a bit crazy because they're only kids and start acting up funny in your home, and your children are forgotten. You can't guarantee that. They are only children.
You see, Kathy, a lot of people believe that the attitude that you have is irresponsible, but other people believe...
I'm saying, Adrian, I wouldn't leave it... No, all I'm saying is I've never had a babysitter. But I know a lot of my friends that have 13-year-olds babysitting, and I see them babysitting, and they're very mature girls. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they go to school. You know what I mean? They go out with their mates after school, and in the evening they babysit.
But Kathy, all I'm saying is you have no guarantee that one night one of them will open the door to one of their friends. The friend comes in and has a little bit of hash. You don't know whether to take a tablet. I mean, they're only kids. They're messing around. They're trying out things. And that's when it can all go.
So what age, Suzy, would you draw the line? Where do you think is the right age for babysitting?
I would say 16.
16 as well. 16 or 17?
16, yeah.
See, 16 and 7-year-olds don't want to be babysitting. And a lot of 16 and 7-year-olds are out walking.
But then I think, to be honest, I don't know. I've forgotten Adrian, that other girl's name.
Her name is Kathy.
No, not Kathy, the other girl.
The young girl who was babysitting, the babysitter, Naomi.
She said that she thought it was a very good idea, which I do too, that you take turns. One weekend you babysit and let your friends out, and the next weekend in return they babysit back for you.
Instead of leaving the kids in the care of other kids. Jude, do you think people are missing the point here? In what way?
You were saying there the show is about a law to be passed about people that are under the age of 18 or 16 or 15 not being able to mind a child, that they shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, should a law be brought in that makes it illegal, basically, yeah.
Well, I think they're missing the point. How many 13, 14 and 15-year-old girls out there are having children? Does that mean that there's a law to say, oh, you have to be a certain age to have a child? Because if you are 13, 14 or 15, if that girl is going to be in charge of that child, she'll have a child in her care, whether she's going out at the weekend or not, regardless of babysitters. So that means that law should say that a 13, 14, 15 or 16-year-old child should not have a child.
But you know and I know, Jude, that a lot of people don't like to see kids of that age having children. They hate to see it.
Of course they do. But the show about tonight is about a law about under 18s or say under 16s minding children. But there's under 18s, 15s and 16s having children. So what do you do with those children? They're having children, aren't they? So the law says that you can't be 13 or 14 or 15 and have a child. Who's going to enforce the law? So if you can't babysit a child at 14, but what law is there to say you can't have a child at 14?
Well, by law, under the age of 16, you can't work after 8 o'clock in the evening. Okay, so it means you can't work in a bar or whatever if you're under the age of 16. Now that law is implemented. Kids under the age of 16 don't work late night in bars. End of.
End of.
Is it not as simple as that?
Okay, there's loads of 13, 14, 15-year-old girls out there to have children. So what do? Tell them, oh, we'll take the child off you. Oh, there's a law there saying you cannot have a child at 13, 14, 15 or 16. And they're not just babysitting, aren't they looking after the child 24/7? Unless they get another babysitter to look after them. But aren't they the carer of that child? Aren't they the mothers of those children? So it seems ridiculous to bring a law in, for the weekends or when a parent is going out, or you can't have an under 18-year-old mind your child. But no, there's loads of under 18-year-olds, girls, having children. So how is this law going to be implemented?
Well, I don't know how it's going to be implemented, but a lot of people, as you can hear, Jude, feel whatever way we need a law. We need a law. We need to stop. You heard the girl on earlier on, 8 years of age, who was minding half the family.
Well, that is wrong. Like, I'm not saying that someone that's not responsible should mind a child, but there seems to be this ongoing thing there tonight that someone under 18, say 14, 15, shouldn't be allowed to mind a child or babysit. But there's, never mind the babysitting, there's 13, 14 and there's teenagers under 18 having kids.
No, I understand. I do understand the point you're making.
It's not going to be implemented. How do you implement that? You don't have a kid at that age, or you're not allowed to babysit.
But in the same breath, Jude, you're saying you agree that it is wrong for an 8-year-old to be left looking after her younger brothers and sisters.
Oh, I totally agree, but my point is, how is this law going to be implemented if an underage child can have a child, but yet not, if they're brought in a law to say that that 14-year-old can't mind a baby at weekends, but yet not, if she went out and had a child, she has to mind. Is there a law there?
No, I take your point. I take your point. Emma, you're on FM104. Hi, Emma.
Hi, how are you doing, Adrian?
Now, Emma, it's you wanted to talk to Suzy, who's saying absolutely no way. In fact, Suzy, you said 16 would be...
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Jude makes an interesting point that there are 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds having kids.
He is right in what he's saying, but at the same time, Adrian, there isn't a real huge group of people at 13 and 14 having babies. And when they do have babies, they can't be forgotten. He said they're rearing them. They're not. Their mothers are rearing them for them. And half of them are probably having babies while they're babysitting. Half of them are conceived while they're babysitting. That's what I'm saying, the dangers of who they allow in while they're babysitting.
But Emma, your point is that you were babysitting at the age of 11.
Adrian, I come from a family where I'm 21 now and my youngest sister is 6. Then I have a 7-year-old brother, an 11-year-old brother and a 16-year-old brother. So basically since the age of probably 8, I was looking after kids in my own house, changing nappies and feeding them, getting up in the middle of the night with them. And then when I was 11, the neighbours started asking my mum could I babysit because they could see how good I was with the kids. And it's no use saying that you should bring in an age of a law like 16, because there's 21-year-olds out there who I wouldn't let babysit kids because they're too immature. Nothing got to do with age, it's maturity.
Mm-hmm. But how do you judge that? How do you gauge a child's maturity?
Well, you know, if you let someone babysit once and they were 16, you know, I think the way I used to be with the kids would love me babysitting because I'd have fun with them. Because, yeah, probably because I was close to the age, I knew what they'd be into, but I'd never let them, because obviously the way you're raised, Adrian, I wouldn't have let them do things that, you know, I wasn't let do because of the way I was raised. I wasn't raised in a bad way or, you know, but I just think it's completely stupid to bring in a law, 16 years of age, you can't babysit till you're 16, because at 11 I was babysitting, and now, like, I mean, I know people who are 21, 22, 23, and I wouldn't let them babysit my 6-year-old sister. But I know people who are 14.
Okay, but isn't it better sometimes, in order to prevent the likes of that girl at 8 years of age minding her younger siblings, don't we have to have some sort of a law that stops that from happening?
I don't think so. I mean,
Well, you think it's okay for an 8-year-old to be left caring for her younger brothers and sisters?
When I was 8 and I was minding my brothers and sisters, I didn't like it and I was annoyed that I was minding them. But I'm glad.
And how long would you have to mind them for?
It depended. I mean, you know, I'd never be left overnight. You know, when I was 8 or 9, I was only left kind of, you know, changing nappies and watching them while my mum went to the shop. But then, you know, as she saw that I was fine with them and they were fine with me, it became longer. But I'm glad of that now. I mean, if I got pregnant tomorrow, I know that I'd be able to look after a child. You know, and I wouldn't...
Well, Suzy, there you go. She doesn't think any age limit should apply.
Well, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, the fact you were left yourself to babysit, you've just come along that way, and you're obviously very confident while you were doing that with your own siblings. But that doesn't speak for everybody.
Oh, I know it doesn't speak for everybody. That's why I'm saying it should
be a law
to do with age.
I mean, as I said, that girl, Kathy said, you bring them along, you bring a babysitter along, and you slowly, gradually introduce them to the family and bring them along to get to know them. I don't agree with any of that because, as I said, they can bring anyone in when she's gone out. Now, you obviously came up with your siblings and you were very close to them, but I'm still saying that's pressure on you whether you like it or not. That shouldn't have been.
It was pressure on me, yeah, and at the time I was very annoyed and I used to have arguments about my mum. Yeah, I was a child myself, but it doesn't mean I didn't have a childhood. And
no, I'm not saying you didn't have a childhood, but I think it's unfair because it takes from your childhood.
Well, yeah, I probably did, but I'm better for it now.
Yeah.
I'm better for it now.
I just think it's mean when your childhood is taken from you.
It wasn't taken. My childhood was not taken from me. It most certainly was not. But
what parts of it was?
It wasn't.
You don't see that it was?
No, at the time I thought it was. At the time I was like, oh God, I'll have to babysit again. But no, not at all. I mean, I'm 21 years of age now, and I have my own house, and I'm glad that I was brought up the way I was and left minding kids. There's people I babysat for a family I was babysitting for 2 years, and they asked me to be their child's godson. He'll be 5 now on Saturday. Or sorry, his godmother.
Yeah.
And fair play to you. I mean, you sound very mature, you sound very grown up and everything else. But I have to go back to what you said earlier on, that you were babysitting from a young age. Where do you draw the line? What age do you think is the lowest allowable age?
It depends. It depends on, when I was 11, I was only babysitting for my neighbours on the road, where my mum was across the road. If anything happened, I could go over and get her.
But that almost proves the point that an 11-year-old isn't mature enough, that you had to have your mammy to call on.
Exactly.
Well, I had her there, but it wasn't very often I'd have to go over.
No, but do you understand the point? By your own admission, you just said, well, if something went wrong, I could call me mammy.
You had her there.
Yeah, I had her there, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. You weren't confident enough or mature enough to do it on your own. You knew you had your mother there.
But it was for the parents of the other children that I was babysitting for. They were happier to know that my mum was there. But I'd never have to call on her.
No, you weren't really babysitting on your own then.
Well,
because mammy was across the road. Let me just bring in one last call on this. And that's you, Michael. You're on FM104. How are you, Michael?
I think it's all nuts. I wouldn't trust anybody watching me kids after what I've been through, after my ex-babysitting. I think it's so mad. I was 14 years of age and I was going out with a girl. And I was invited up to a house party. And that was my first time experimenting with drugs. I was 14 years of age and I was on Elmy Head and LSD. And the girl that I was going out with, she was 15 years of age. She was babysitting a 9-year-old. When I arrived up there, Elmy Head and LSD had the child locked out of their head. By the time 1 o'clock came in the morning, the guards were called and we were all asked to leave the house. You left the house. And I have 4 kids now, I'm 31 years of age, and the only way I'd have anybody minding my kids is if it was a family member and they were 21 years of age and I knew for a fact they had no drink problem or a drug problem.
So you're admitting that at 14 years of age...
yes, I was experimenting on drugs, and I was out there, I'd done everything. Like
no, but your point is that your 14-year-old friend, your girlfriend or whatever...
I was 14. She was 15.
Right. But were you hanging around the house with the babies?
I was going out with her. She was babysitting. She invited me up to the house. She knew we were all on LSD.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So while she was babysitting the kids, you were in the house out of your face on LSD.
Yes, and she had a 9-year-old child there. She decided to get drunk at 9 so she can get the child to bed early, and that was 8 o'clock in the evening. They went out at 7, they said he was back at 1. And the guards were called at about 12:30 because the party got out of hand, and she was minding a 9-year-old. I think it's nuts.
No, that certainly does
I've got 4 kids in my own now, and I won't let anybody babysit them kids.
Now, in fairness, not all 14-year-olds are out of their face in LSD, acting the maggot and having parties.
I was in the 90s then, and the 90s we were all experimenting. And that's you ask any 19-year-old, it's buried up in the 90s, to be all experimenters. I don't care what anybody says. And anybody says you didn't, they're all lying. We all did.
All right, so no. What age would you, if you were bringing in a law, what age is the youngest you would allow to babysit?
18 with a history, with a background. You have to have a guard check. I don't care. I would not have anybody in mind. I have 4 kids now, and after what I've seen with my eyes and what I've done in my own eyes, like, you know where I'm coming from, there's no way, unless you're 18 and I had a guard check on them, I would have nobody minding my babies. They're my babies, and I've seen what I've done, and I've seen the trauma that I caused. Not just me, it wasn't me, I was babysitting. I wasn't babysitting, she was babysitting, but I've seen the trauma that caused that family, and there's no way in the world I'd see that trauma being put into my kids. There's no way. I think it's disgusting. And I'm disgusted with myself for what happened that night, but there's no way in the world I'd have anybody doing that to my kids.
All right, appreciate the call. Thank you very much indeed. I have to leave it at that. Thank you very much indeed for all of your calls. This is FM104's Phone Show with Adrian Kennedy. The majority of you, it would appear, feel that there should be an age limit for babysitting, but what that age limit is, I don't know. A lot of you feel kind of around 14 or 15, but you shouldn't be allowed to babysit below that, even though hundreds of you have been on to us and texting us saying that you did babysit from that young an age. Anyway, thank you for your calls.